that was the moment I broke my arm. Now, hi everyone, I'm not Greg. Greg's not here today. I'm Derek. You might have seen me in the channel before through my super matches, or I've made a video last year about the junior scene exploding in Singapore. I just wanted to talk a little bit about my journey onto WAF Worlds as Singapore's only representing member into WAF Worlds this year. I've always wanted to compete at the world level. It's always been my dream since I started arm wrestling around 2 years ago. And this year, what you saw in the earlier clip was of the Open Brawl. And the Open Brawl was a competition that was held on January 18th. And it was essentially a collection of every single puller from all ages and weights in Singapore together in one big messy brawl, so to say. And I had some successful matches. I had a successful match against Sean Wisely, but the unsuccessful part came when I went against Sean Lim, who you saw in the first clip, and I tore my ulnar tendon, mostly. It was not completely off the bone, which is why I didn't need surgery, but the doctors offered surgery to me and I refused it. I opted for the naturally recovering solution, where I was then put in a cast, and I was in the cast for around a week to 2 weeks before I had to head off to Shanghai. And because they were worried that I'm gonna get blood clots in my arm, they switched it over to an arm brace, so it looked more like a robotic arm, so to say. And I had the arm brace on for a full 1 month to 1.5 months, where I only got that off roughly during early March or somewhere around there. But the whole experience was incredibly humbling, because I always was used to training with my right arm, and I was never much of a left-handed puller, so I started training left more at that time. And doctors also told me that to get fully healed, to get fully recovered, it would take 6 months or even more, and I probably couldn't go into a press or couldn't go deep inside again, as the cost and the risk of that to my tendon is going to be much greater than any reward that I could get from that. After the arm brace, I've had a really slow recovery period throughout the entire month of March. I was just doing band work, tons of blood flow. And that's largely in part to lots of the advice I've gotten from seniors, and also clips online I've seen like Devin and other these guys who've experienced these injuries before, and I started seeking out advice on how to recover the fastest way possible, because I've always had this dream of WAF Worlds ever since in December of 2024, when the WAF calendar was put out for the year. And there's the European Championships, there's the Asian Championships, but the event that stood out to me was the WAF World Championships, where I've always wanted to compete at. So I still had my set on that, although right after the arm break, I felt completely devastated, and like the dream for going to WAF this year was completely crushed, as this is my last year of being able to go to WAF as a junior athlete, because I'm born in 2007. So next year onwards, I would have to represent the youth category of Singapore instead of the juniors. That brings me into around late March. So at this point, against the doctor's advice, I started doing some light tabling work. I started doing more recovery. Here and there, I started pulling a little bit, and I tried to get my hand back in the game sooner than the doctors advised that I should. My arm was feeling incredibly fresh, but there's also some lingering pain there always. And the first time I really kind of tested my right was at UAG Tokyo. So I headed over to Tokyo and I pulled with some of their guys there, including I think the 70 kilo number 2 in Japan, and also some of their more casual pullers. And that's when I knew that my side pressure on my right really wasn't there. Like I would get stopped in like a flopped position where I got all the pronation I want, but the side pressure just couldn't come through. We've also had some other events around that time as well, the April 12th event, where I tested my hand with some overseas pullers like Yuri and Igor, also some local Singaporean pullers like Zaire. I felt like I was still in recovery, and this whole block of time was just focused on recovery, on blood work. I was maybe around 50 to 60% recovered by April. I felt better and better, but the sharpness was not really there. After the April 12th event, I kept on tabling, and I at the time, I kind of drew out a map for my road to the World Championships because I wanted to be really, really clear what I should do in each month and maybe even each week to my training, to my recovery. And I got to work. Even though the initial goal was a bit far-fetched to go to Worlds like I had envisioned at the start of the year, I felt like it's still a really real possibility, and I really wanted to make it a reality because I'm also joining national service right after Worlds this year, so I thought that this would be my last opportunity in a really, really long time to compete at the highest level that I could. After the April 12th event and before around June, when I felt more recovered, I was just tabling, I was just recovering, and there was a lot of work put into that, where just before June we had the UAC event. And at the UAC event, when I did some practice pulls, that's when I felt much more recovered. I've done a lot of training and recovery up to that point, but at the UAC event I was able to go against guys like Zaki, go against guys like Bernard, and feel pretty good. Like, my side pressure was always intact, and the one thing that you know about training a lot better than before your injury is that recovery is super key, warming up is super key. You're never going to neglect warming up again, and that has also been why this blue band right here has been one of my biggest saviors of all time. Just being able to do lots and lots of recovery, lots of warm up. And before each of my matches now, I'm warming up maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, like fully get all the blood flow in. And the importance of blood flow and recovery really comes to play when you're in that place where you're not able to train. And when arm wrestling is something that you love, just not being able to do what you love and get better at it is a really awful feeling that I had to endure for quite some time. Now, to the actual prep for WAF Worlds, I kind of cemented the fact that I really want to go to Worlds in Bulgaria, and there's no really other way around it. That's when I started training really seriously. And that was around June of this year. I was like, okay, I got 3 more months to seriously lock in and really train. And this was also when I graduated from high school. So at this point, I didn't really have any academic struggles, or I didn't have to divert my focus to multiple streams of attention. Everything was just put into arm wrestling. It's currently around mid-August. Over the past 2 to 3 months, I've been almost completely focused and dialed in on arm wrestling. My full-time job is basically to train, to recover, to arm wrestle, and also a big part of that is the diet. But it's also at this point where in early June, I wanted to test my right level again, and I just had a trip to go to Shanghai, and I tested my level against some of the pullers there, including a guy called Qiao Yi. He is the previous Chinese 70 kilo champ, or number 2, I'm not too sure about that. But anyways, it was a really refreshing experience to actually pull and feel all my power there without my side pressure starting to get in the way. I could feel that it's weak, but I could feel almost no pain at this point. I was feeling really, really solid, especially against guys at a higher level. I started to feel, maybe even better than what I was doing, pre-injury. And I think that's also one of the biggest parts of this entire journey, is that I think I would have made less progress if I hadn't gotten injured, because getting the injury motivated me so much to be able to push through everyone's expectations and my own expectations and try to strive to achieve that next level, especially when you're being doubted and you doubt yourself. And going to that world level competition, it is extremely, it's a process that it pushes you a lot, I think. At this point, we are around late June to July. This was when I was around 76 kilos, and I had to make up my mind about the first super match that I want back in with my right arm, because I've been out of the right arm game for so long. It's over half a year at this point. So I was like, I gotta get another match before I actually go to WAF Worlds, right? So I should get a super match or a competition of some sort, but there isn't any competition at this time. So during the Greg versus Zongduk event, which I helped organize on July 6th, I also put in the undercard match, a match for myself and another notables puller in Singapore. He's been arm wrestling for a long while. His name is Zaki. He was his previous Singapore top 6. He competed in top 8 last year. And it was my first kind of real experience against a higher level puller. He's gotten some injuries, so maybe he's around the top 12 to top 15 level right now on the right arm. And for me, it was a great, type of gauge to see where my right was and how it has recovered. And I won that super match 3-1. It was a pretty hard fought battle, but overall it was a great experience. And it really signaled to me that, okay, what I'm doing for recovery is working, what I'm doing for training is working, this is what I should keep doing, And at this point, I had to make a decision for WAF Worlds, whether I wanted to go 70 kilos or 65 kilos or even 75 kilos. Because at the time I'm 76 kilos, and it's been mostly where I'm at since a year ago, where I was still competing in the 70 kilo class. But for me, from what I've heard from other people, seniors around here, I think the class that I'm going to be able to make an impact in maybe is going to be the 65 kilo class. And I was willing to get started on a diet as soon as possible to try to cut down to 65 kilos as soon as possible. But of course, maybe to around 68.5 to 68. So we leave a 3 to 3.5 kilo water cut there. I started the cut around July 7th, and so a day or two after the super match, and I've kept track of everything, all of my macronutrients, my entire diet, and I've tracked everything on this chart here, where we are on the 5th week, going on the 6th week now. And this whole process I've been on diets before, but I've never been 65 kilos since I was a 13-year-old kid. So it was a really tough process for me to be. I've cut maybe around 5 to 6 kilos in the past 5 to 6 weeks. So it's on an average of a kilo a week. It's been pretty aggressive, but training's been great. But there were some hiccups along the way. So right after the Zaki match, my TFCC, it was, I would say, mildly injured. I couldn't even do a push-up. Everything felt really, really difficult to do. Any cupping exercise, any kickback exercise, any form of exercise in the hand and wrist was really tough to do without any pain. So that was a period of around 2 weeks where I had to get back into recovery shape, and I kept doing recoveries, saunas, band work, blood flow, and it was just tons and tons of that each day while I'm cutting ferociously, because I'm doing maybe 20 to 25,000 steps a day on top of a 400 to 600 calorie caloric deficit over the past while. But I've kept steady and I've continued to train since. That leads me to the next unfortunate event, and it's when I was overseas in a trip to Bangkok, and I was doing some sparring there, not arm wrestling sparring, like physically sparring, and I took a really strong hit to my riser chain. And the riser chain is composed of really delicate muscles, so it's really, really easy to injure them. And I got really nasty bruises all along there, and I couldn't really access my rising power, although I already scheduled a training session with the Bangkok team just a day after the sparring session where I got the pretty bad bruising. So the sparring session combined with the all of the activity from arm wrestling the next day, I had to take another 2 weeks off of training just to recover. But overall in this year, I went from not being able to hold a water bottle, not being able to lift my arm up, and just completely stuck in a cast to be able to get into world level shape. Right now, I'm under 70 kilos. I'm in great shape. I'm still post recovery from the Bangkok injury, but it is slowly getting better and better. I'm feeling better and better. Maybe I'm not going to be able to go over there and dominate all of the Europeans and win the class, but I hope that my presence in the world scene, because this is Singapore's first time being represented at WAF Worlds in 10 years, I believe. Last time it was 2015 with The Godfather and some, I think Joshua Tay and Joshua Chen and some other guys who went over there. But it's the first time that Singapore has come back onto the WAF scene since 2015, and I think for me it's an honor to be able to represent Singapore. No, I'm not a Singaporean citizen, but I've trained here all my arm wrestling career, and I've made a lot of friends in the arm wrestling community, and I've lived here for most of my life at this point. So it's really an honor to be able to represent Singapore. And without further ado, we had an event on August 16th where I spoke a little bit about my involvement in the upcoming World Championships. So let's give that a listen.
We're speaking to Derek Chung. Derek, what compelled you to decide this is the time to travel and compete at Worlds?
I've always loved arm wrestling as a sport, and I've had this vision of going to Worlds for so long already. So last year when we were still affiliated with IFA, I wanted to go to the IFA Worlds, and this year that we're associated with WAF, it's my last chance as a junior athlete since I'm born in 2007 to be able to actually go represent Singapore and to compete at the highest level that I compete at, to see what the level is like out there.
Which weight class are you competing in?
I'm going to be competing in the junior 65 kilo class.
How long have you been preparing for this?
Oh, I've been preparing this all my life. I mean, it's been really like a long time coming, specifically preparing for this competition. Probably the last 2 to 3 months or so, dieting, cutting. I've experienced injuries, rehab, training, all of that over the past 2 to 3 months have been the most intensive period of time.
Can you describe the format of your event in Bulgaria?
Yeah, sure. So basically, it's going to be a double elimination tournament. So what that means is everyone's going to be put into a bracket. And if you lose twice, you're basically out of the game.
What does it mean to be the only one from the Lion City to be represented at the Worlds?
It means the world to me. I mean, it's awesome to be able to represent Singapore. I'm not from Singapore locally myself. I'm not born here, but I spent most of my life here. Gotten to know everyone in the community here. I've grown up as an arm wrestler here, as a student, as a person here. And to be able to represent Singapore at the highest level of competition that we have, it's truly an honor for me personally.
Your dad is paying for your trip. He's also traveling with you.
Yes.
What has he said about this dream to compete at Worlds?
This is actually probably the last time that they're going to sponsor me, so it's a little bit unfortunate there. But they've always been super supportive, despite at the start they were a little bit concerned whether I'm going to get injuries, and I broke my arm at the start of the year, right? So naturally, his parents had more and more concern for the sport. But after I've kind of told them how arm wrestling works, I've kind of calmed their worries, and now they're more supportive of the sport.
What are your own personal expectations in Bulgaria?
No, it's really a crazy scene out there. As Singapore, we don't have that much exposure to the world, especially over the past 10 years. We haven't really gone to these world level competitions where we actually compete with the top level pullers. So for me, it's kind of like a wild card. Either maybe I'm just going to get flashed twice, or maybe I'll be able to make a small dent in a big class over there. So either way for me, I think it's truly an experience to behold, and I'm going over there not just to try to dominate the Europeans, but truly for the experience, to get to know all the arm wrestlers in the community, to embrace myself and represent Singapore in the greater image of the world.
So, final question, you've just graduated from the Singapore American School, you're going to the World Championships, what's next?
What's next is going to be national service in Singapore. I'm looking forward to the experience. Honestly, it's an experience like nothing else, right? It's an experience to train myself in that 22-month range, to be able to really get used to that national service environment. For me, I think it's going to be an experience to behold. Looking forward to it. I have a couple of competitions lined up. I'll come back and fully ready to embrace it, basically.
Thank you so much, guys. Stay tuned for all of the updates. I'll definitely update you guys on my journey to WAF Worlds, as I'll be the only person in Singapore going to WAF Worlds this year. I'll take you on the trip, but up until then, see you guys.